Marcus Chen hurried through the bustling streets of downtown Seattle, his polished Oxford shoes clicking against the rain-slicked pavement. As CEO of PacificTech Solutions, he couldn't afford to be late for the merger meeting that would define his company's future. The morning drizzle had turned into a typical Seattle downpour, and pedestrians scurried past with umbrellas and raincoats, creating a blur of motion around him. At 45, Marcus had everything society deemed valuable: a corner office in a gleaming skyscraper, a magnificent house overlooking Lake Washington, and a reputation as one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs on the West Coast. Yet the constant pressure of maintaining that success weighed heavily on his shoulders, especially today. The merger with Global Connect would either cement his legacy or become his greatest failure. 20 years of building his company from scratch had led to this moment. His phone buzzed again, probably another message from the board members already waiting in the conference room. Without breaking stride, Marcus reached into his coat pocket for his wallet to buy a quick coffee from his usual cart. That's when it happened. In his haste, the wallet slipped from his fingers, landing with a soft splash in a puddle. Before he could reach for it, a gust of wind sent it sliding across the wet sidewalk, disappearing beneath a newspaper stand. Marcus cursed under his breath, checking his Patek Philippe watch. 15 minutes until the meeting. He couldn't afford to chase after a wallet now, even if it contained his credit cards and lucky business card holder. "Sir! Sir, wait!" A raspy voice called out behind him. Marcus turned, irritation flashing across his face. Through the rain, he saw a figure emerging from the shadows of a building alcove. The man's weathered face was partially hidden beneath a gray beard, and his clothes, multiple layers of worn jackets and patched pants, marked him as one of the city's countless homeless residents. "Your wallet," the man said, holding out the dripping leather billfold. "Saw it fall." Marcus reached for it, surprise replacing his annoyance. In this part of town, a lost wallet usually meant canceled credit cards and hours of hassle with identity theft protection. He pulled out several $20 bills. "Thank you," he said, extending the money. "I appreciate your honesty." The homeless man didn't take the bills immediately. Instead, he was staring at Marcus with an intensity that made the CEO uncomfortable. There was something familiar in those deep-set eyes, something that tugged at Marcus's memory. "You don't recognize me, do you?" the man asked quietly. Marcus studied him more carefully now. Behind the beard and beneath the layers of street-worn clothes, there was indeed something. "Should I?" Marcus asked, his phone buzzing again insistently. The homeless man reached into his own pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, brown with age and soft from countless unfoldings. "Found this in your wallet while checking the ID to return it. Thought you might want to know it's still there after all these years." Marcus took the paper, his fingers recognizing the texture before his eyes confirmed what it was. His heart seemed to stop as he unfolded the note he'd carried in his wallet for 2 decades, its creases so deep they had nearly worn through. Asterisk, "Dear Marcus, never forget that success isn't measured by what you gain, but by what you give back. Your talent will take you far, but your heart will lead you home. Always proud. Mr. Thompson, asterisk." Marcus's hands began to tremble. He looked up at the homeless man again, really looked this time, pushing past the masks that time and hardship had created. The eyes. They were the same knowing, gentle eyes that had watched over him for 4 crucial years of his life. "Mr. Thompson," he whispered. "David Thompson." The former high school computer science teacher nodded slowly. "Hello, Marcus. It's been a long time." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. David Thompson had been more than just a teacher. He had been the first person to recognize Marcus's potential when he was a struggling sophomore from a poor immigrant family. Mr. Thompson had stayed after school countless hours, teaching Marcus programming, encouraging his dreams of starting a tech company, even helping him apply for the scholarship that changed his life. And now here he was, homeless on the same streets where Marcus's company headquarters rose into the clouds. Marcus's phone buzzed again. The board meeting. Global Connect. The merger. None of it seemed important anymore. "I need to make a call," Marcus said, pulling out his phone with unsteady fingers. He dialed his assistant. "Sarah, cancel everything today. Family emergency." He could hear the panic in her voice. "But sir, the Global Connect executives dash. Reschedule it. All of it." He hung up before she could protest. Mr. Thompson was already turning away, as if expecting nothing more than the brief interaction of returning a wallet. "You have important things to attend to, Marcus. Don't worry about Dash." "No," Marcus cut him off, grabbing his former teacher's arm. "Nothing is more important than this. Please, let me buy you a coffee. I need to understand what happened." They found a quiet corner booth in a nearby diner, away from the rain and curious stares. The waitress raised an eyebrow at the odd pair, the immaculately dressed CEO and the homeless man, but brought their coffee without comment. As steam rose from their cups, David Thompson's story emerged slowly, painfully. The dedicated teacher who had inspired hundreds of students had faced a series of devastating blows. First, his wife's early-onset Alzheimer's had drained their savings. Then, the experimental treatments they'd tried had put them deeply in debt. After she passed away, the medical bills and predatory loans had cost him everything: his house, his retirement, his dignity. "The system isn't designed for second chances," David said, his hands wrapped around the warm coffee cup. "Once you fall, the momentum keeps pulling you down." Marcus listened, each word a weight on his conscience. He had lost touch after graduation, too focused on building his empire to maintain connections with his past. How many times had he walked past homeless people without really seeing them? How many might have been others who had once helped him on his journey? "The scholarship you helped me get," Marcus said quietly. "It was the foundation for future leaders. They gave me a full ride to Stanford because of your recommendation letter." David nodded, a ghost of his old proud smile appearing. "You deserved it. I knew you would do great things." "The foundation asked me to join their board 5 years ago," Marcus continued, the pieces of an idea forming in his mind. "We've been looking to expand our programs beyond just college scholarships." He pulled out his phone again, this time sending a rapid series of texts. The responses came quickly. "Mr. Thompson," Marcus said, looking his former teacher in the eye, "I'd like to offer you a job." David's expression turned wary. "Marcus, I appreciate the gesture, but I'm not looking for charity Dash." "This isn't charity," Marcus interrupted. "The foundation needs someone to develop a new initiative, identifying and supporting teachers who go above and beyond, who change students' lives the way you changed mine. We need someone who understands both sides of the system, someone who can help prevent others from falling through the cracks." He slid a business card across the table. "The salary is competitive. Full benefits, including housing assistance for the first year. But more importantly, it's a chance to do what you do best, making a difference in people's lives." David stared at the card for a long moment, his coffee growing cold. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why would you trust someone who couldn't even manage his own life?" Marcus pulled out the old note again, smoothing it carefully on the table between them. "Because you taught me that success isn't measured by what you gain, but by what you give back. I gained everything I have because of people like you who believed in me. It's time I started giving back." Tears formed in David's eyes as he looked at his own words, written so long ago. "I meant every word of that note," he said softly. "I know," Marcus replied. "That's why I've carried it all these years. And that's why I know you're the perfect person for this position." Outside the diner windows, the rain had stopped, and rays of sunlight were breaking through the clouds. David picked up the business card, running his thumb over the embossed lettering. "When do I start?" he asked. Marcus smiled, feeling lighter than he had in years. "How about we get you cleaned up and find you a place to stay first? I have a friend who owns a residential hotel nearby. Then tomorrow, we can dash." His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Sarah with news about the Global Connect executive's reaction to the cancelled meeting. Marcus started to silence it, but David stopped him. "Take it," his former teacher said. "Your company needs you." Marcus answered the phone but kept his eyes on David. "Sarah, tell them I had a family emergency, which is true, and that I'd like to reschedule for tomorrow morning. Yes, I know they're upset, but sometimes life reminds us what's really important. No, I'm not having a crisis. Actually, I'm finally thinking clearly for the first time in a long while." He ended the call and stood up, extending his hand to David. "Come on. Let's get you started on your new life." As they walked out of the diner together, Marcus realized that his former teacher had given him two priceless gifts, first as a teenager with dreams, and now as a successful man who had nearly forgotten what those dreams were really about. The note in his wallet had always been more than just words on paper. It was a reminder of what truly mattered, a compass pointing toward real success. And today, it had led him exactly where he needed to be. But as Marcus helped David into his car, he had no idea that this was just the beginning. The old note would reveal one more secret, one that would shake both their lives to the core and force them to confront a truth neither was prepared to face. #Homeless Man Returns Lost Wallet, Part 2. 3 days after their chance encounter, David Thompson stood in front of the mirror in his hotel room, barely recognizing himself. The man looking back at him wore a crisp blue shirt and charcoal slacks, clothes Marcus had insisted on buying him. His gray beard was neatly trimmed, his hair cut and styled. But it was his eyes that showed the most dramatic change. There was life in them again, purpose. Marcus had been true to his word. The residential hotel was comfortable, if modest, and the foundation job was real. David had spent the previous day meeting with the board members, sharing his vision for identifying and supporting teachers who went above and beyond for their students. But something was troubling him. The note. There was more to it than Marcus knew, a secret David had carried for 20 years. Now that fate had brought them together again, the weight of that secret felt unbearable. His phone, another gift from Marcus, buzzed with a text message. Meeting at my office at 10. Car will pick you up at 9:30. MC. David sat heavily on the bed, pulling out his own weathered copy of the note, identical to the one Marcus carried, but with one crucial difference. On the back of David's copy, in his late wife's handwriting, was a confession that would change everything. The car arrived precisely at 9:30. During the ride to PacificTech Solutions, David's mind wandered back to that day 20 years ago when his wife, Catherine, had made her deathbed revelation. Marcus sat in his office, staring at the Seattle skyline but not really seeing it. The Global Connect merger meeting had gone surprisingly well yesterday. His unexpected humanity in postponing it for a family emergency had actually impressed the executives. But his mind was elsewhere. Something about Mr. Thompson's reappearance kept nagging at him. The timing, the note, the strange feeling that there was more to their connection than he understood. His assistant, Sarah, knocked on the door. "Mr. Thompson is here," she announced. David entered, and Marcus was again struck by the transformation. With proper clothes and grooming, his former teacher's natural dignity had returned. But there was something else in his bearing today, a tension, an urgency. "Marcus," David said, "there's something I need to tell you. Something about your parents." Marcus frowned. "My parents? They died in that car accident when I was 13, before I even met you." "Yes," David said quietly. "The accident that sent you into the foster system. That's where this starts." He pulled out his own copy of the note. "You never asked why I took such a special interest in you as a student. Why I spent all those extra hours helping you, why I pushed so hard to get you that scholarship." Marcus had wondered, occasionally. He'd assumed it was simply because he showed aptitude for computers, because he was a promising student. "The night your parents died," David continued, his voice rough with emotion, "they were driving to meet someone. Someone who had information they desperately wanted." Marcus leaned forward, his heart beginning to race. "What are you talking about?" "They were driving to meet my wife, Catherine. She was a nurse at Seattle General. She had helped deliver a baby 15 years earlier, a baby that had been given up for adoption. Your parents were that baby's biological grandparents. They had been searching for years." The room seemed to tilt. Marcus gripped the edge of his desk. "What?" David's hands trembled as he turned over his copy of the note. "Catherine wrote this on the back the day before she died. Read it." Marcus took the paper with unsteady fingers. The handwriting was delicate, faded. Asterisk, "David, my love. The guilt of this secret has haunted me for years. The night John and Maria Chen died, they were coming to learn the truth about their grandson. They never made it to the hospital. The boy they were looking for, their daughter's child that she gave up in her teens, was Marcus. Our Marcus. I helped arrange his adoption, and years later, fate brought him to your classroom. I couldn't tell them. I couldn't tell him." the confidentiality laws. But maybe someday, when the time is right, the truth can heal what was broken. Their daughter, his biological mother, still lives. Her name is... Marcus couldn't read anymore. The paper fell from his hands. My biological mother is alive? David nodded slowly. Catherine made me promise to watch over you, to help guide you if I could. When you ended up in my class, it felt like more than coincidence. But I never knew how to tell you the truth. Then you graduated, moved on, and the moment seemed lost. Marcus stood up, pacing to the window. His whole life, he'd believed he was alone, that his family history had ended with his parents' death. Do you know where she is? My biological mother. Catherine's note included her last known name and location, David said. I've kept track of her over the years, just in case. She's a social worker in Portland. Her name is Grace Martinez now. She works with adopted children, helping them connect with their birth families. The irony of that hit Marcus like a physical blow. All these years, his biological mother had been helping other families reunite while carrying the weight of her own separation. Does she know about me? About what I've become? David shook his head. She knows you were adopted by the Chens, but after their death, she lost track of you. The system was different then, harder to navigate. She's tried to find you several times over the years, but... Marcus sank back into his chair. Why tell me now? Because, David said, seeing you again, seeing the man you've become. The note says success isn't measured by what you gain, but by what you give back. Maybe it's time to give back something that was taken from both of you, the chance to know each other. Marcus stared at the family photos on his desk, pictures of him with his adoptive parents, school photos, graduation. His whole life had been built on a foundation he thought he understood. Now that foundation had shifted, revealing new depths, new possibilities. I need to meet her, he said finally. David smiled gently. I thought you might say that. I took the liberty of calling her office this morning. She'll be in Seattle next week for a conference on adoption advocacy. Marcus looked up sharply. You already contacted her? No, David assured him. I only confirmed her schedule. The choice to reach out has to be yours. But Marcus, she's given her entire career to helping others find what she lost. Maybe it's time for her own story to come full circle. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus threw himself into learning everything he could about Grace Martinez. She had built a remarkable career, becoming one of the most respected voices in adoption advocacy. Her organization had helped hundreds of families reconnect. The morning of the conference arrived clear and bright. Marcus stood in the lobby of the convention center, his heart pounding. David waited quietly beside him as attendees filed past into the main hall. Then he saw her. Grace Martinez had his mother's eyes, the same eyes he saw in old photographs of Maria Chen. She was speaking animatedly with a colleague, her hands moving expressively as she talked. Everything about her radiated warmth and compassion. Marcus stepped forward, David's reassuring presence behind him. Ms. Martinez. She turned, professional smile in place. Yes. My name is Marcus Chen, he said softly. And I think you've been looking for me. The recognition wasn't immediate. Then her eyes went wide, her hand flying to her mouth. Marcus, she whispered. Little Marcus. They stood frozen for a moment, 28 years of separation hanging between them. Then Grace reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing his cheek as if making sure he was real. You have your grandfather's smile, she said, tears spilling down her face. I see my father in you. The professional facade crumbled as she pulled him into an embrace. Over her shoulder, Marcus saw David quietly stepping away, giving them privacy for their reunion. But Marcus called out, Mr. Thompson, wait. When David turned back, Marcus said, we wouldn't be here without you. You're part of this story too. 3 months later, the Foundation for Future Leaders launched its most ambitious program yet. The Thompson Initiative, as Marcus named it, went beyond just supporting current teachers. It created a comprehensive support network for educators facing personal crises, ensuring that no more dedicated teachers would end up on the streets. But the program's impact reached further. Grace Martinez joined forces with the foundation, integrating adoption support services into their mission. Together, they created a model for helping families navigate the complexities of reunion while providing practical support for those facing challenges similar to what had driven them apart. The old note that had brought them together now hung framed in the foundation's headquarters, both sides visible, the original message and Catherine's revelation. Below it, a new plaque read, "Success isn't measured by what you gain, but by what you give back. And sometimes, what you give back is the truth." On a sunny afternoon a year later, Marcus stood at a podium, addressing the foundation's annual gathering. David sat in the front row, beside Grace. They had become a kind of family, bound not by traditional ties but by the strange and wonderful way their lives had intertwined. "A year ago," Marcus began, "a lost wallet and an old note brought three lost souls together. It taught me that success isn't just about building companies or making profits. It's about recognizing the hidden connections that make us human. It's about understanding that sometimes the most valuable things we can give back are the truths we carry and the bridges we build." He looked out at the audience, teachers, students, families brought together by the foundation's work. Every one of us carries notes in our lives, written or unwritten. Messages of hope, of truth, of possibility. Today, we're creating new notes, new messages for future generations. Messages that say no teacher should ever face hardship alone, no family should lose hope of reunion, no dream of connection should be abandoned. David Thompson, no longer homeless but now the respected director of the initiative bearing his name, smiled up at his former student. Grace Martinez, who had finally found the son she'd never stopped loving, wiped away tears of joy. And Marcus Chen, the CEO who had rediscovered his heart through a lost wallet, felt the full circle of their journey complete. But even as he spoke, somewhere in the audience, another story was taking shape. Another lost soul was finding their way home. Because that's the thing about truth and connection. Once unleashed, they create ripples that touch lives in ways we can never predict. The note that had lived in Marcus's wallet for 20 years had done more than reunite a family. It had reminded them all that our lives are interconnected in ways we rarely understand, that every act of kindness or truth can change the world in ways we never expect. And somewhere in Seattle, a young teacher was staying late to help a struggling student, planting the seeds of another story yet to unfold. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.